Hey guys! So today we're going to do another close read of Stone Girl, Bone Girl, and Meow Meow's going to help us. I don't know how good of a listener she's going to be. But as we reread actually another section of this story, I want you to think of something. No good story just is like, oh, they want this and they lived happily ever after. There's always a challenge. There's always something kind of hard that happens. Think of even in your own life, there's always something hard, and how we respond is what makes life interesting. If you choose to quit, then amazing things can't happen. But if you choose to show perseverance, even when it's not easy, awesome things happen. And again, it's not easy, but it's worth it in the end. So let's read it together. I'm outside today. It's so pretty. Forgot my words. So let's read it again. Now, remember, we read about Mary. She's a pretty awesome girl. She was struck by lightning. Her dad and her had a great relationship. Remember, his name was Pepper. And other kids didn't really like her. Remember, they had that stone girl, bone girl, out on her own girl. They were just mean to her. But she and her dad kept on having a great relationship. He showed her these curiosities, which really were fossils. And then all of a sudden, he started getting sick. Remember, the story didn't tell us that he was sick, but it gave us some ideas that she was sick. And actually, this is the wrong page there. Kind of helps to start on the right page. So let's stop. When we ever do a close read, we always look at the picture a little bit. We can see the dad, we can see Mary. It's kind of like we're looking above into their house, which is kind of cool. Let's see what happens. Okay. One evening, some rich ladies came to Pepper's workshop. Mary knew who they were, the Philpott sisters, who lived together in a fine house high above the town. Scientists, people said. Hmm, you know what a scientist is? Do you see how I ask myself questions or actually ask you? The youngest of the ladies, Annie Philpott, wanted Pepper to build a glass fronted cabinet to display curiosities, she said. Mary jumped up. She couldn't believe that someone else was interested in curiosities. Excuse me, Mary said nervously. Would you, would you like to see my collection? And she pulled open the drawer. Gasped the ladies. What wonderful fossils! Fossils? Mary had never heard the word. Remember, I told you like a long time ago they didn't know what those were. The Mrs. Philpott smiled. They could see that Mary didn't know much about her collection. I'll tell you what, Mary, said Annie Philpott. When Pepper has finished my little cabinet, why don't you bring it to us? We could have some tea, and then we will show you our collection. So this is something different in the story. She was up, interested in curiosities, and then now there's somebody else who knows about them, and a special type of someone, a scientist. If you're with somebody, it wouldn't hurt to like, what how would you describe a scientist? What do you think? Obviously, Meow Meow doesn't know what a scientist is, but if she did, she'd tell you a scientist is someone who, because anything that ends with ist usually is a person who studies science. So, scientist studies science, studies fossils. That's why they knew about it. Okay, so looking at the next pictures. Ooh. I'm gonna first look at the first one with Pepper. He looks rough. Let's see. For 3 long weeks, she waited for Pepper to finish the cabinet. Can you imagine how impatient Mary must have been? Like, if you knew that once your daddy was done with this, you could get to go see something cool, I would be so ready for that. But he seemed to be working more slowly than ever. Mary was very worried about him. But at last the elm cabinet was finished. The wood was from the same tree that had been struck by lightning and had almost killed baby Mary. That's kind of crazy. She thought it was the most handsome thing that Pepper had ever made. Slowly, because remember, he's not feeling good, Pepper wrapped the cabinet in brown paper and tied it with a string. His old hands were shaking as he kissed Mary. I don't know if that's a good thing. Mary had never seen anything like the Philpotts' house. There were expensive rugs in every room and maids to serve the tea. Maids were like paid people to do all your chores at your house. Pretty awesome. Most wonderful of all was the collection of curiosities. The Mrs. Philpott explained that the fossils were the remains of ancient sea creatures that had been preserved in the clay. So now she's at the Philpott's house. So that helps me know what's in the next picture. I bet you that's a Mrs. Philpott. She has a fossil. A dinosaur tooth. Everything was so interesting that Mary forgot to be nervous. When Annie Philpott showed her a huge tooth she had found, oh, then, do you see it? I caught myself. It didn't make sense. So I said, then Annie Philpott. As you read, you got to make sure it makes sense. And believe me, when I was your age, my mom would say, that doesn't make sense. And I was like, I just read it. Rereading never hurts. So I showed her a huge tooth fossil she found. From a great sea monster, she said. She told Mary she believed the rest of the creature was still out there, hidden in the cliffs. But it was dead, so that's a good thing. If anyone could ever find that, Mary, that would be the greatest treasure of all. It was nearly dark when Mary ran down the hill. As soon as she pushed open the workshop door, she knew that something was wrong. Ooh, so far in this part of the story, there's not really a bad part, right? That was exciting. She got to actually see the fossils. She got to talk to Miss Annie Philpott. I mean, it's awesome. But remember, I told you, we need to look in the details of the text. So far, there's nothing bad. It's all good and exciting. But that right there, she knew something was wrong, tells me something bad is about to happen. There's a challenge coming up. Uh-oh. Just in looking at these pictures, look, guys, I see tombstones. We know that tombstone means that someone's dead. That's not good. Oh. The workshop was so quiet after Pepper died. Her dad's dead. To Mary, it felt as if half of her heart had fallen away, like the farmhouse on the cliff edge, and there was no money. That's even worse. That's a big challenge, because if you don't have money, what could you do? What did her mama do? Let's see. Her mother began to sell everything she could think of to get money, and still they went to bed hungry. One evening, Mary wandered up to the churchyard. A heavy fog hung over everything. Oh, so let's visualize this. This is like part of a scary movie. There's a fog and you can't see very good. Ragged clouds dragged at a lemon-sliced moon. As she came to the stone that marked Pepper's grave, something moved in the darkness. This is where the scary music would come in. Bum, bum, bum. For a moment, Mary was afraid. But coming closer, she realized that it was nothing but a funny little dog. A little dog with a coat like speckled pepper. The dog bounded over and licked Mary's face. When she turned to walk home, the little dog came too. At last, it ran into the workshop and curled under the table. Oh. That's why I like this story. I love dogs. Perhaps you need a friend too, laughed Mary. From that moment, Mary and the dog were never apart. So there's a sad part in the story, but kind of a sweet part too. So let's think. There's a challenge here. On the next exercise, I want you to share with me what the challenge is. I want you to share also about how her mama faced the challenge. So take your time, think about it, think carefully about it. And in your sentences, they've got to make sense. Capital letter, punctuation at the end, everything you learned in first grade. Okay? You guys are doing a great job. Keep it up and don't stop. And Meow Meow says, bye-bye. I don't know if that's her voice though. We'll still find out. See ya.